Do you, I mean, do you see anybody in the political arena who is, you know, who gives you hope or who seems to get what you're talking about?
I think the heart of the problem is our monetary system is out of control. There's only one guy who understands it. It's Ron Paul.
Who do you look to, if anyone, in Washington, D.C. to execute what you're suggesting? I mean, is it the Democrats? Is it the Republicans? Or are you saying that everyone's sort of out of touch here and in bed with Wall Street?
The only one that, to me, seems to have a firm grip on all of this is Ron Paul.
I supported Ron Paul, but he was the only guy that was actually saying anything that was truly different.
Ron Paul makes a lot of sense, and more people ought to listen to him. The Texas congressman has visionary ideas about where the country ought to be going and what sea changes are necessary in order for the U.S. to continue being a superpower. When Ron Paul ran for the Republican nomination in 2008, he talked about the economy imploding, the untenable nature of the national debt, the eventual destruction of our currency, and a limited role for government.
Today, this country is in the middle of a recession for a lot of people. Michigan knows about it. Poor people know about it. The middle class knows about it. Wall Street doesn't know about it. Washington, D.C. doesn't know about it. But it's because of the monetary system and the excessive spending.
No one can deny how ahead of the curve you were on all of this stuff. And I admire anyone who risks a great deal of wrath doing that sort of stuff.
Does the Federal Reserve contribute to the business cycle?
It has. It has in times.
Does excessive credit and low interest rate cause malinvestment? Artificially low interest rates?
We could make mistakes and put the interest rate at the wrong, and that would have negative impacts. I agree.
And someday we may try the market to determine the interest rates. Thank you.
A lot of the things Ron Paul warned us about have happened. We're deeper in debt, a lot deeper. The dollar is worth quite a bit less. The federal government increasingly dysfunctional, and the country is more divided maybe than at any time since the Civil War.
What would be your job's plan?
Repeal about 70 years of bad economic policy, which isn't all that easy because we follow Keynesian economics, and Keynesian economics teaches that you need to spend more money. No matter how much debt the people are in debt and the government's in debt, they advocate just more spending. So you have to reverse that concept.
So I think it's much better to bite the bullet and say we've lived beyond our means, we ought to live within our means, we ought to have a sound currency and balanced budget. We need to have a system where we invite capital back into this country.
Why should the politicians be able to spend at will and then just print money when they need it, and then they wonder why we get into trouble? So yes, we have to take the Fed on because it does cause the business cycle. If you want to understand recessions and depression, you have to understand the Federal Reserve System.
What do you think of Ben Bernanke? He's doing as good a job as he thinks he can do in the Federal Reserve. But look, I'm not going to spend my time going after Ben Bernanke. I'm not going to take my effort and focus on the Federal Reserve.
But the falling dollar is absolutely crucial to many of the things that ail us. You know, the consumer price index is jumping. People are furious at the rise in gasoline.
Federal Reserve. I'll take a pass on the Federal Reserve right at the moment, to be real honest with you.
You were a Fed chairman?
Yes, I was chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City.
Are you for or against auditing the Fed?
It's not going to be an issue that I'm going to carry the water on because I don't believe they're going to find anything.
We found out in the bailout, the Fed was involved with $15 trillion passing out to their buddies, 1/3 of it going to foreign banks. I mean, this is such an outrage. It's bigger than the Congress itself.
In just a few minutes, the Republican candidates for president will square off in a Fox News debate in Iowa. Compared to President Obama, each one of these folks would be an improvement. But an improvement is not enough. Ron Paul is the only candidate in the Republican race who has served in the federal government and not succumbed to the debt disease, and who has consistently voted to force the government to live within its means. If we elect a small government candidate in 2012, we may get out of this mess. If we don't, we won't. As you watch this debate tonight, look for the candidate who will upset the status quo, not just modify it slightly.
Welcome to the Orange County Convention Center in Orlando, Florida, the site of our Republican presidential debate. Now a question for all of the candidates. How are you going to turn this country around? Mr. King.
But what Americans are looking for in order to build that confidence is leadership.
Governor Romney.
We are a patriotic people.
Governor Perry.
Energy independent, and that is the way you get America working again.
Congressman Paul.
I've been arguing this case for 20 years and warning about bubbles and housing bubbles and NASDAQ bubbles, and a lot of other economists have been doing the same thing. Until we understand that, you can't solve the problem. You have to deal with the Federal Reserve System, you have to deal with free markets, and you have to deal with the tax program and the regulatory system. Then you can get your jobs, because the people will create the jobs, not the government.
Waiting for the applause.